Hello and welcome back to the Not So Politically Correct Manifesto. Today we are on the first episode of the technology series. This episode is on how social media shapes our identity and relationships. Today is the 25th of January 2023 and it is now 8 p.m. I am joined by two revisiting guests from previous episodes. Introduce yourselves for the new listeners.
Hello, my name is Salman. I'm 17. And what else am I supposed to say?
And you?
Yalla, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mohammed. Uh, I'm a guy.
Okay. Well, this episode is going to be a quite long one, so buckle up and prepare yourselves for quite a roller coaster of an episode. First, I'd like to define what social media is and what it has become from what it originally started as. First, and starting in the invention of the internet and the internet as a network. It was initially started as a project to connect devices. However, it grew to connect people instead. The start of this, the big dot-com bubble that burst in 2010, the start of the social network enterprise was with MySpace, and then followed shortly by Facebook. However, today it's grown into a nest of several social networks and social medias that connect several different people of different cultures, different heritages, and different communities all together in a press of button. And it's become the dominant form of communication and entertainment in today's society, often being called as a, a tool that has a foothold onto people as a whole and on how everyone acts, as it can access all of your information and everything about you in seconds, and people can use it to track you and look for you. However, today we'll be looking more closely as at how it shapes our relationships and our identity with one another. And I'd like to see your perspectives as we are all a part of this social network and we're all a part of the social media as a whole. And I doubt that there's anybody that's on the internet today that hasn't had an interaction through social media. However, today's social media is more tailored to the younger generation, and it's more tailored to the trends of the younger generation, as that's how the uh, the capitalist environments of the social media really shows, and how they try to capitalize on any trend and any fad in the social network in order to gain users and in the end gain customers. First, Salman, let's start with you. What do you think, like in your experience of being a part of the social media, how easy is it to create an online persona? How easy is it to hide from all the fame and from all the starlight? How easy is it to just disappear?
To disappear from social media.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what you did on social media. It completely depends on what you did there. For example, some people they give away everything on social media. Some people they don't value their privacy enough. They think that whatever they do on social media to stay there. They put out their real names, they put out their addresses, they put out pictures of their faces for people to see. So people just so they become, for example, they gain a mass following, right? And then they say
Hmm.
something or do something that offends people, and then they expect to just disappear because it's just on social media. But no, you give up your real world identity on social media. It's not that easy to disappear. Social media, you if you put If you put your personal information there, it does not disappear. If you put anything there, it stays there forever. You don't know how many backups there is on social media. If
Yeah,
something is put there, it never goes away.
that's true. Yeah, the permanency of the internet as a whole is quite jarring to some. And also, it's quite jarring how much information you can find. For example, I could just, as an interviewer, trying to hire you, I could just look up your name and within seconds find everything I need to know about you, everything I need to know about your past, your family, your online presence. However, there has been quite a revolution, if you would say. This is when people create an online persona. What are your perspectives on online personas? Have you created some? Do you have online personas, perhaps a separate online life, separate from your own?
Um, Race, you start, and then I will go.
Problem. I'd say that all my social media accounts, I do use my real name. I do use actual information and post about my personal life because I feel like permanency is relevant, or so should I say, permanency is relative since the bigger you are in scale of like social credit with other people around you in social media, the more permanent your information is.
Mhm.
But let's say you're on the smaller scale, you don't have too many followers, it's just your friends and family. Um, Making an online persona isn't really that special because most of the people actually following you are people you know in your personal life. And if you wish to make all those memories disappear or just to get rid of your online life, it's as easy as just clicking the sign out button. So I feel like relative to the size of of your network or the size of your channel, I feel I feel like having an online persona isn't for everyone.
However, once you think in hindsight, you might change your opinion. Say if in 10 years you boom into stardom and you become a influencer of sorts, wouldn't you want your personal details, your home, your life, your family to be hidden away, to be, just removed from the internet?
I've
Now,
already taken precaution for that. That's why all of my personal accounts are privated. No one can enter my account unless I allow them to.
mm, and so you make sure you have your internet hygiene in check. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
What about you, Salman? You wanted to say something about having an online persona?
I don't believe in an online persona. I feel like having an online persona is unhealthy because if you're making a persona of changing who you are based on the people around you, even if it's the people around you online, that means you're not being yourself. You're not being
Hmm.
true to yourself. If you're not being true to yourself, that's going to exhaust you mentally. That's going to make you feel exhausted. If you're feeling exhausted while you're online, that just defeats the entire purpose of being online. Most
Hmm.
people, they go online to relieve stress. They go online to see the news. There's no need to stress yourself even more. For example, when talking to friends online or when doing something online, why would you stress yourself with keeping up a persona that isn't you or trying to be someone who you're not?
Well, I understand your point, but to be honest, I'd have to disagree. I'm sure you at least know why. Because I feel as though that having an online persona doesn't only mean that you have to create a new personality. It's just hiding under a mask. It's just you're you as yourself, but under a mask, not showing yourself, not showing your real identity to the others. That makes you more able to mold yourself, your true self, and to grow into that mold. And in my experience, there are two types of people who make online personas. There are people who try to hide, and people who completely shut off their online people, their online communities from the real world communities. And there are the people who try to mask their real world communities and their online communities as one, and to try to combine them and make them the same community that they live in and they communicate with, and to make sure that both people from both communities are interconnected and know each other. In my personal experience, both have different drawbacks and challenges to the person on the persona itself. But being a person that has used several online personas in the past, whether for it to be to connect with others or to grow myself or to connect to more people, it's all been a journey that I can't forget, and a journey that shaped me into the person who I am today. For example, like a mere 4-5 years ago, I had a very closed friend group. I wouldn't interact with anybody outside of it. It was just me and my 4 friends that we would go out and have fun with and interact on the daily. However, ever since COVID, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with us, but COVID really disconnected all of us. And that's when I grew my online persona and found out more about myself than I thought I ever could. Because in my online persona, there was nothing to hide. Nobody would know who I am. So I could just be my true self, and show everything I aspire to be. And that's helped me grow my personality, helped me grow my confidence in myself, and it's really helped me understand myself, I feel. What were you gonna mention?
Then I guess you misunderstood me. I think there's been misunderstanding between you and I about what a persona means. While I'm understanding an online persona as being a persona being something you faking a personality to be something you are not on the internet. You're saying you're just hiding your identity on the internet. That's what the
I don't think we have a
persona is.
misunderstanding. I think it's just we have separate views of how faking is. In my opinion, when you're faking something, even comedians and liars and people around the world, investigators, in fact, use this in order to find out a liar. Liars often hide themselves, hide the truth within their lies. So what is a lie but me trying to discover myself and me showing others my true self that maybe I haven't discovered yet? And having an online persona often just leads to that becoming your persona, or the other way around, because it's complicated and often impossible to just handle 2 personas at once and handle 2 complete personalities at once. Often it is
Okay, I have
one
a
that
question.
overcomes the other. What's your point?
I'd say this. Let's say you act differently online than you do while interacting in real life. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's say someone from your real life met with you online for once and saw how you acted differently. Don't you feel it's a bit disingenuous to the people you either interact with online or outside of the internet to act in 2 completely different manners, since that maybe they'd feel like you're acting while you're around them? Don't you feel like they'd feel a bit put off by the 2 different personas you'd be putting on?
Well, tell me this: when you walk across the street and stumble into a stranger, and then you spark a conversation with them, would you say that you talk to him the same way as you had talked to a friend that you've known for 10 years? Many of
I
you,
understand.
many of you
I
would say, of
understand what
course
you mean.
not. Yeah, since that's
Probably
people
not,
act
but that's a
differently.
surface level relationship. I'm saying, let's say you had a close friend that you spoke with in school, and you went out, and most of your interactions were all in person, and then suddenly he met with you online with a bunch of your online friends, and saw that you're acting a bit differently. Don't you feel like that's a bit disingenuous to the friend that you spent time with outside of the internet?
I wouldn't say so. I'd say it's just how I act around different people. It doesn't have to be online. I could act differently to you, or to how I act to a friend that I barely know, and how I with a colleague, and how I act with a fellow student. My
Exactly. You can't
interactions
act
with
the same
my interactions
towards
with
everyone.
people don't have to be linear, and they don't have to be the same. I can act differently towards different people based on my relationship with them. And this might change a little bit when it comes to online friends, because a point that's important to remember, that these online friends aren't as, in my opinion at least, I'm sure many people have different opinions, but these people aren't as real as real friends. They are more of just online characters that I interact with. And of course, they truly act themselves, and they truly have their own personalities, their own separate personalities and opinions and thoughts, and are humans on the other side. But on my end, and on many of the people that I have interacted with, they feel the same way, that we are just icons on a screen that talk. And
So would
that,
you count your online friends as like filler people in your life, just to fill out some sort of space when you're not around your close friends?
I wouldn't say so. I'd say they're more of, well, yeah, that would be a way to put it, but it wouldn't be the most accurate. It would be the broadest way to put it. Because in that way, you're missing out on the fact that sometimes I act more real with them than I act towards my real friends. Since I want you to tell me this, around your parents, would you act the same way that you act with your friends?
Me personally, yes, I act the same way with pretty much everyone except a stranger who I just met for the first time.
You wouldn't talk differently, maybe hide some things,
Be
thinking that they
nice
would be
to
judgmental?
not just be
Maybe when I
judgmental,
was
maybe
younger, but me growing up, I feel like my parents know me, and they have pretty much the same opinion of me as my friends do, so there's no reason why I should act any different.
wouldn't you hide sensitive information? Like, wouldn't you talk about like topics such as topics? Uh, don't you have topics that you would talk about to your friends that you won't talk about with your parents?
Personally, any topic that I feel is sensitive and I wouldn't tell some people, I just don't bring it up at all with anybody.
That's interesting. I haven't really seen that perspective before. I would like to hear more about it. Like, how do you go on your day to day life when you're just talking the same to everyone you meet? Or not everyone you meet, all of your friends.
But wouldn't that make your life or your relationships undynamic? Wouldn't that make people just exactly the same? That would make people much more boring, despite their opinions changing, obviously.
But I
That
don't think
would
so.
make
I prefer having a relationship of what you see is what you get, because you won't.
not about what you
There's no
see, is
flip
what you
flopping
get.
around with let's say basic beliefs in a person.
It's not
I,
about
I
what you see, is what you get. For example, I have a friend. I have, for example, something, let's say, that is private to me. I'd like to share it. I'd like to share it because I don't want to keep it bubbled up inside of me. I'd like to share it. I'll share it to one of my closer friends.
Yeah.
But I won't share it to a friend that I've known, for example, for 2 months.
True.
That's
That
it.
is true.
That's
But
that's
I wouldn't
different. Like
mean that at all.
I would talk to a friend that is close to me. I would talk to them differently. I would talk to them about more sensitive topics. I would talk to them more openly. There's a difference. It's not
I,
about expressing my opinion more. No, I would express my opinion the same way. However, I would be talking about my own life, my own experiences more openly with a closer friend rather than someone I just met that I won't be comfortable saying stuff like that around. Like
although I agree, I th- I have I have so many private things that I don't tell anyone, and I keep it in the back of my mind. I use it as a sort of secondhand motivation at times. Uh, Whenever I feel like I'm tired or I don't have the motivation to do something, I think about all those private or sensitive topics that I have, and they drive me on. I feel like if I was to spread those sensitive topics, I wouldn't have anything to push me. I use it as a source of motivation for me to excel in something that I am passionate in.
I think we're
yeah,
going off on a tangent, but I'd just like to uh, add one thing to what you just said. Do you feel as though you lack trust in others, and that is why you lack the ability to share your private information with, like, maybe even close friends, maybe even friends you've had for years? Do you feel as though that you lack enough trust with them to tell them your just things that are private to you that you keep to yourself? Because I feel as though I barely know anything about myself that is private that I haven't shared to at least one really close friend. And I feel as though a lot of people feel the same way. It's hard to carry your own burdens. And a lot of people try to lean onto others to help them carry them with together. Uh, do you not stress when carrying your own burdens all the time? And is it due to
Um,
trust?
to a small extent, probably it is due to trust, but at the same time, I always think of it this way. When all is said and done, all my memories, all my truths, and everything, they're going to die with me eventually. So I either use it as a motivation. I try to like almost counsel myself by writing my thoughts in a notebook, for example, having a journal around me to see my progress over the years. I've had a journal for every year since 2015. And every year I just see how much I progressed from the year before. And then I think of it like sometimes sensitive information, it's not necessary to the people around me. I don't think they'd care about my sensitive topics as much as I do. So there's no point of me sharing it with them.
Mhm.
mm, that shows that's a lack of not trust. Other than trust, that's just a lack of a sense of closeness to others.
Yeah,
That's a
maybe.
lack of
Do you feel as though you haven't found the right person to share
shared.
those private
No,
data?
I definitely have, but I feel like I'd be putting up. Let's say I sat with a close friend and told them like I'm going to tell you something extremely private. Please don't share it with anybody. I feel like I'd be burdening them with my
Yeah, that's
burden. So
true.
there's no
Okay,
point
okay.
of
I see your
bothering two
point.
people.
You'd rather not burden others with your own burdens. You'd rather not weigh them down with things that have been weighing you down. Um,
Although I used to do that, but I realized that it had an effect on my friends and the people around me. So
that's
I
quite a
wanted
mature way
to.
to look at it. And actually, in fact, that's part of the reason a lot of people
Don't
lean
share.
towards online friends, because
Yes,
in online
exactly.
friends you don't have the realism factor, you don't have the real person in front of you factor that you are affecting. You have just this possible figment of online imagination, possible robot or AI that's just talking to you. And you don't know whether they are real or not. Of course, their thoughts lead you to think that they are real, and their conversations lead you to think that. But it is easier for you to tell them what you are feeling and the burdens
That's
that you
very
carry,
true.
rather than
Exactly.
tell them to someone to your
But
face. That
At
brings
the
you to
back,
yeah, but
uh,
at the back of your mind, this idea that Rene Descartes brought up in his theory, I think, therefore I am, it just gets brought up even more when discussing an online friend. You think,
but
therefore you
I,
are.
I,
So
I
you're
feel
sure
like
of your existence. Excuse me. You're sure of your existence, but you're not sure of this other person's existence.
yeah.
You don't see them. There is no proof of their existence.
And even if you did see them, you don't see them, and you don't feel them, and you don't feel their interaction with other objects around you, and you don't truly know if they exist until you meet them in real life.
okay.
That's
I wanted to add one more thing.
yeah. Go ahead.
I feel like online relationships, especially friendships, are extremely dangerous because in these situations, in sensitive situations, because you never really know the intention of the person you're talking to. You don't know if you open up, they could, let's say, try to bribe you for information, or maybe the call is monitored by some sort of outside source.
That's true.
It isn't as private as a one-on-one conversation.
Exactly.
That's true,
Therefore,
but you have to, as we mentioned in the start of the episode, you have to be wary of your internet or your social media presence, because you never know who's watching. You never know what's being sent where and what's being saved where. That's why, even when dealing with online friends whom you feel have no control or power over your real life, they may gain that power through your trust, and they may gain a back door into your life through you trusting them and entrusting them with your private information and your private details. But at the same time, getting rid of them is as easy as just sharing the minimal sharing the minimal amounts to make sure that your point gets across and no more.
Yep.
And whenever it gets beyond that point and you feel that you're not safe, just shut the laptop and walk away. There's nothing holding you tight, nothing holding you back from leaving. So yeah, that's a true factor. And luckily I haven't felt endangered. Hopefully I never will, but I make sure to be sure that I say what I mean and say the minimal amount to like make sure that I'm safe. Uh, but this has been a lot of talk around how talking to other people online can affect you and how they can affect your relationships with them and with others. I just want to bring this more towards how it can affect yourself. We touched on this previously, but how do you feel this affects someone's self expression?
someone's self-expression, talking to other people online.
Yeah,
Do you mean like it depends on what you're talking about? For example,
I can give you an example
in
if you'd like.
give me an example.
Okay. For example, for me, when I was not on my online presence and not on social media, generally, I was not on social media. I was just on my real life interactions, and I would just communicate through seeing my friends on a daily basis. But once I have had the ability to get on social media and to communicate with several communities and cultures, I found that my ability to express myself grew because I'm connecting with more people and sharing about myself more often. Maybe it's not sharing more about myself, but it's the quantity and the repetition that's functioned sort of as a training to train myself to express my feelings and to express how I feel and what I've been through and who I am. That's really helped me express myself better and grow my talking abilities and my abilities to speak and to present and to communicate with others. I feel as though after the short or long lived years of COVID, that I went back to school and I was able to talk better and to express myself better and to communicate with teachers and to present and to have long speeches better because in the online world and the social media world, especially the world that I lived in, that I communicated in, it's mainly verbal and mainly oral, and you are focusing on what you say and how to clearly express what you say and the minimal amounts of words, and to make sure that your points gets across in the most vivid manner because they weren't there to see what happened to you. And to express yourself truly, you have to tell the story of what happened.
Mm. And you had no physical or visual representation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I was going to bring another example. For example, once, for example, someone is on, let's say, Twitter, and they're in a space, for example, they're talking about, let's say, music album, and their ability to, mm, their, their, how can I say this correctly? Okay, so let's say we're talking. What was the question again? It was about how it affects someone, right?
How it affects someone's ability to express themselves.
Oh, their ability to express themselves. No, the ability to express themselves, it improves usually.
Yeah.
Usually it improves because as social media, it promotes communication. So the more you communicate with other people, no matter how it is, even if you're just arguing with other people on social media, the more you argue, the more you do stuff with others, you would realize that your ability to communicate gets better. For example, I have a friend. He always argues with people on Twitter on political matters, on matters as medial as football, as large as big political matters. He would argue with them on anything, and thus he's planning to study law because of how good his debating skills became, just because of how much he argues on social media. You know who the front is, though?
Yeah. I'm aware. I feel as though this point, although we are both very one-sided on it, I feel as though Rais's point that he mentioned earlier of how it can be disingenuous kind of functions as a counter to both our points of how it grows self-expression, because he mentioned that Rais, you can jump in at any point and correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned
I would.
how some interactions online can be disingenuous since you're not acting the same as you act to others and you're not acting to your true self, and that can damage someone's ability to express themselves because they are used to telling this lie, this faux personality, this faux life that they live. They're used to giving this disingenuous story about themselves that it doesn't really help them gain the ability to truly understand their own feelings and to truly be able to express their true self. Is this how you feel, Race, or what do you think?
Um, I feel like no matter how we look at it, there's always going to be some sort of social reputation that you will build, no matter if it's in person or online.
Yeah.
I feel like, let's say you go on a online rant and someone who knows you very well from your personal life reads some, maybe you phrasing something very vulgarly, or maybe in a pretty crude way, and he does not recognize the person he knows in his social life to the person who actually wrote that rant, let's say, on social media. That could make the person even feel like the friend that they had is two-faced, since he is unpredictable in the way he acts online or in person.
Hmm. Well, yeah, that's true. Those are both different perspectives, but I feel all three of us reach the same verdict that social social media does have a benefit to someone's self-expression and their
Yes.
values. Yeah. Um, I feel as though like we can all agree as well that it helps people connect with one another more easily. Like
That is true.
even though we're focusing more towards the online aspect and the online persona aspect, if you even if you consider that connecting to family that live abroad, connecting to family that are studying abroad, for example, in the very humble beginnings of the social media calls and online calls and online personas, we see Skype, where it was primarily used to contact family and to contact relatives that are distant. And yeah, the main reasons of social media's existence today was to connect one another. But now it's grew to this larger network of interactions and communities and cultures that I feel it functions as a whole separate universe that we share.
I,
Um,
I do agree that it is a mainly positive thing that it is its own universe,
yeah,
but lose it makes you forget the importance of actual interactions in person, because there's something special about interacting organically with a person. Maybe somebody, let's say, is a bit introverted and would prefer to maybe socialize online. Their sense of reality on how to interact with people or how to build relationships would be a bit warped, because it's not the same. Having an organic relationship outside, even going on a call, let's say, if you were to just call family on Skype or FaceTime or any of those video call applications, you could feel like it's not important for you to actually go visit these people because you can see them at any time. But in all reality, meeting these people in person is what makes your relationship with them so unique and special.
yeah, that's true. But I'd like to bring you both to an article. I'll bring it up on the screen here. It's on the New Yorker by Miss Renner. The article is titled How Social Media Shapes Our Identity, and it's actually the inspiration for this episode right now. Um, I'd like to just summarize the main benefits that this article mentions of social media. It brings up points that's directly a counter to your point, but I feel as though your point is still very much valid. The article mentions how social media allows us to control our own narratives and to express ourselves and communicate with others. That's the same points me and Salman were leaning towards earlier. And it also helps people cope with difficulty of memory. And I feel as though that's something I faced in the past. It was very difficult for me to remember things, and through expressing them several times and reiterating them, it's made them more prominent in my mind, and it's made me gain new memories with these new communities. But also, it mentions another point which I feel we have discussed enough. It mentions how social media helps people remake themselves, and it does function as another personality, as another person that often grows to become someone's real identity. Uh, some of the drawbacks that it mentions, I feel that we haven't touched on this episode thus far. It mentions first and foremost how social media prevents people from moving on from their past selves. I feel Salman touched on this previously, and he did discuss in detail how this affects someone's identity and how it's possible for someone to forget the permanency of the internet. Is that right, Salman?
Yes, I talked about the permanency of the internet and how it's hard to forget who you once were and how it's hard to move on from phases of your life because of the internet.
Yeah, but here's a point we haven't talked about. I'd like to have you both discuss this for a moment. Uh, what do you feel about the internet and specifically social media's tools being used against the public, being used in matters of propaganda, bullying, public shaming, discrimination, all of those things? I'd just like you to discuss for a moment. This is a drawback of social media that the article mentions as well. Just, I would like to see your opinions on that.
Someone would
I
you like to
believe
say?
I'd like to start. I
Go
believe
ahead.
that, for example, let's start with bullying. Anything, anything can be used in a wrong way. Anything can be used in ways that are wrong. For example, let's say a ruler. A ruler is used to measure things. However, a student can use it to bully another student. Now, should we ban rulers? Should rulers stop being used in schools? No, it doesn't mean something like that. It just means that it's been used wrong.
True.
Social media, it's the same thing. It's everything has its drawbacks. Everything can be used wrong. Everything, when not used in its right place, would have its consequences. You cannot expect it to all be flowers and rainbows and everything to go well. It doesn't work like that. Life is not like that. Like, it's not going to be something that's, oh, social media is all good, social media is all bad. No, it's going to have its ups, it's going to have its downs, and that's normal. That's normal for everything in life.
Yeah, that's true. Race, would you like to add on that?
I definitely agree with what Salman said, but there is one point I really want to stress on. Most of these social media organizations and websites are either built, funded, or influenced mainly by the West. And the West are really big on free speech. So the fact that censorship and uh, let's say reports being made on accounts is so plentiful these days is kind of ironic, since don't all of those count also as free speech? I mean, they want the social media platforms to be as realistic as possible to normal human interactions. In your day-to-day life, you'll definitely meet someone who would bully you. You'll definitely meet someone who discriminates against you. If you grow up in a place that's censored and basically just make sure that your feelings aren't hurt, you don't grow as a person. You just stay, uh, your brain stays small. You keep feeling like your life is perfect. And yeah, it doesn't give you any sense of accountability or any taste of the real world that you're actually living in and that you'll eventually have to step into.
Exactly. People who in social media these days, they just keep blocking out everything that's real and just hear what they want to hear, not what's actually there. They just hear what they want to hear. They just block out everything they want to hear. If they, for example, some people, when they hear something they don't like, they just they just label it as bigoted. For example, they label it as bigoted, or something I don't like. Okay, that's bigoted. Or some people, they find something they don't like, they label it as radical left, liberals. Okay, this is something you don't like. You don't just label it as something political. This is just a point of view. This is a perspective.
Exactly. And I wanted to add this as well. Um, I feel like the social media companies should remove any sort of buttons like the report button, for example, because let's say in real interaction, you'd go and go to a rally, for example, and the people in that rally don't really voice something that you agree with morally. Nobody would go and report them to the police because it's their right to express their opinion. But what you can do is just walk away. And that's why I feel like the button that says not interested
Yeah.
in this post is much more useful than the report button.
Yeah, but I think the report button should stay, for example, for when someone posts something vulgar, such as, something that I won't speak about, something,
I do agree, but then
what
doesn't
I'm
that make
talking about.
I do, but don't you think that makes the social media companies a bit hypocritical? Since if you were to
There is
remove those
free speech,
posts,
but
wouldn't
if
it?
someone posts something illegal, it needs to be reported.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
say
true.
someone.
I
It
feel as
is
though
true,
there are
but
a lot
There
of
can
needs to be
freedom?
there needs to be limits. There needs to be, such as how real life has police, social media needs to
yeah,
have.
That's very
exactly.
true, but in that case, freedom. The word freedom shouldn't be used because freedom means that there is
There's
no
no
restriction.
there's no
Well,
such thing as
you
freedom.
are
There's no such thing as
twisting.
freedom.
Yeah, but I feel as though freedom can be, as you said in the start, uh, permanency is dependent on how many viewers you have. Freedom is also dependent on how open the society is and how many people are a part of that society, because the more people that are a part of it, the more communities that are part of it, the more able people are to harm one another. But I feel as though the drawbacks of social media can be touched on and can be dealt with in a more detailed manner than we are dealing with it today. It's not necessarily as much as policing them, but rather guidelines, guidelines of
Exactly.
guidelines of what to say and what not to say. And of course, there could be some open societies that have complete freedom, as you mentioned. But
Yep.
I'd like to put a pause on this episode, since this has been quite a run on tangent in the episode itself. And since we haven't even touched on half the topics that are to be mentioned in this episode, I'd like to continue this in the second part, which we will see you again in shortly. This has been the first episode of the technology series, and I hope you've uh, enjoyed our insightful conversations, and you've been as touched and uh, as educated as I felt throughout this episode. Yet again, I'd like to thank you, Rais and Salman, for being guests and volunteering to join us on this episode. And also, I'd like to thank the listeners for listening along. Uh, of course, the sponsor of this show, AdventureBox, the non government organization that helps people experience their world in a whole new way. Uh, See you all shortly. Goodbye.